they talked to the European Union and said, we have to have a consult, we have to talk about this. So I went over there and I said, all my role was to say was what 508 was and what the mandate required it. And Europe all of a sudden was back sitting up looking at this, oh my gosh, we don't want Europe to become a dumping ground for inaccessible technology. Yeah. And so, of course, that totally changed the picture. And so now it is Europe leading the way, identifying the gaps in standards around the world for the first time on accessibility, which they had never thought of trying to do before. I mean, of course, we always had usability with us, but accessible design was something very different. And anyway, so the dynamics are very interesting. And so now we have a treaty, the UN Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which all these countries have signed and ratified, and they, over 141 of them, and do they really know what they signed? Do they really know what they ratified? It's going to be interesting. But in the interest of business, for a business case, the business case is bottom line affected by what our laws and policies require? Because as you think about it, with our civil rights laws, we're a minority. In the U.S., the business market is looking for the majority. And that's part of the reason why we have our civil rights laws to enable us to even that playing field.
I want to pick up on something there. I mean, I did talk about the heart earlier and how important it is. It's also important to have a bodyguard, and that's the law, right? Like, you want to have someone there who's pushing the point and enforcing. On the money thing, I would also frame it slightly differently. There's a different way to look at it, which is just follow where's the money flowing for purchasing the stuff. Cynthia is doing it with the federal government. Within the federal government, you know the most important agency is around disability, in my view? Defense Department. The Defense Department spends a lot of money.
And in the beginning, the Defense Department under 508 had an exception. They didn't have to buy accessible technology. But immediately the Defense Department began to look at the issue of, oh, if I have a worker out, if I have a soldier out in the field and they can't see something because it's dark, or they can't use their hand because they're holding a weapon, or they can't move, they're under a tank. I mean, who knows what all the scenarios are? They needed the same accessibility features. So that's why Homeland Security, when I began training the 508 people, at the federal level, they thought, well, okay, we have that protection, we can, you know, we have that cover, we can, but we're going to implement it. We need it.
And the defense moves fast. The other thing I would say about defense, it's a weird situation where, because the Defense Department has the biggest budget of the agencies within the federal government, all the other agencies look to its certification body to tell them when a technology is good enough to have it become required in a federal workplace. So if you work for the Department of the Interior, they will say, well, what is the, and I'm blanking on the acronym, you may know it, sorry? The Defense Department's accessibility review body. It's like CACT or something like that. They'll ask you, what have they approved it? Because if I'm an Interior, if I'm going to get my boss to sign off, I can say, well, the Defense Department signed off on it. And they're like, okay, then you can have that as an accommodation. So it has to do with buying power, right? Like they have the weight to do it, and they also have the resources to do research and to check it out. They have also the Veterans Administration. There's a lot of issues there as well. Definitely looking at where the money that is driving the conversation is a great way to think about how to influence it within organizations. And honestly, if you can't get someone's heart fired up about it, their general counsel can. And when the general counsel of a large corporation starts asking, are we in violation of the law here if we don't ship it with this? That's an interesting shift within the organization. Frankly, Microsoft got their hand slapped very badly in the early 90s and turned Windows into the most accessible platform. Windows is great, and it's been, weirdly, everyone hates Microsoft, but the ubiquity of Microsoft has made computers much more accessible than they would have been, because you can drive them all now on JAWS anywhere in the world, which is an incredible thing.
Being based in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area, one of my biggest concerns that the lawyers coming out of our law school who are going to be business lawyers had better, be up to par and understanding what 508 was so they can help their client. And so it's good for us.
Okay, there's one last question about. I want to keep it brief.
It's not even a question. I'm having some trouble restraining my curiosity. Could you please demonstrate the device you have? The Intel.
I'd be happy to. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. So first off, you can hear I've been listening to it. So obviously not probably.
Yay, the cart wasn't working on that.
Come on, catch up. I can give you a transcription later if we have it. I'll give you the demo. Sure. So this is the Intel reader. Let me bring the speed down. Disclosures. I do presently work for Intel. I'm not going to be working for them by May. I no longer lead this team. This product has actually gone now over to a joint venture between Intel and GE. But I'll give you a quick demo. You take a photograph of any printed material. Go back to that story about my mom. Like, I don't have to fax stuff to her if I can just control access to it. That I think is a big frontier for accessibility technology, is making it personal, so you're not relying on a third party to do that. So I've got here today's speaker bio list. You take the camera, you turn it on like this. So there's a picture on the front. You won't be able to see it at that distance, but it's got a camera here. You go ahead and frame it up, turn it up. So you capture that text. You could then go do more text if you want, multiple pages. And then you play it by pressing the play button. It takes about 30 seconds it's going to process it now. It'll turn it into speech. And you can then get access to it. They are commercially available, I can tell you that. When it was introduced, interesting point about technology, it drops in price. Everyone freaks out about expensive technology. It was introduced at $1,499. It now sells for $899 a year later. So that's technology, and that'll continue.
Society, the board of directors of the Habeas Corpus Research Center, and the editorial advisory board of California Lawyer Magazine. D-Rami is a former executive.
So you can do that. If I'm in a log exam, I can't spell executive.
E-X-E-C-U-T-I-V-E.
Hey, you could cart that.
So that's the technology.
Okay, thank you, Ben and Cynthia, for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.